Save the Semantics, episode 49. It is November 22nd, 2018. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I just kind of ramble on about things and topics that currently interest me at the moment. Today is Thanksgiving, and I don't exactly know when I'm going to upload this episode, but happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. Happy Black Friday, I guess. I don't want to get into Black Friday again because I already discussed about it last year. Made my complaints. I don't really know how much more I can really talk about just Black Friday in general. I think anything and everything that's been said about it has already been said. So I don't really think I'm going to be adding too much to the conversation, how it's just, the irony and shit after it follows Thanksgiving. I did all that last year anyway. So I'm just gonna talk about things that are, currently going on at the moment. The weather is pretty fantastic right now. It's after the rain, and after rain weather is always just, it's one of my favorite just sort of just environments to just sort of walk through and sift through. Just because I don't know, it's just you're kind of able to see, the effects that rain has on. I guess I don't fucking know what I'm talking about, but I just like the feeling of after rain. I just like the environment that takes place afterwards. And it should calm down the fires a little bit, hopefully, at least in our areas, and hopefully other places in California are getting rain as well because they definitely need it at the moment. But yeah, just speaking on a positive note, the weather is really nice at the moment, and I hope everyone out there is enjoying their whatever things, festivities, or even if they don't celebrate it, whatever they're doing at the moment. I don't exactly know what I wanted to discuss today. I think I just wanted to put some thoughts out at the moment. What have I been doing? Not a whole lot, to be honest. It's only been like a week, and when it comes to just kind of doing, it can be kind of. I've probably mentioned this before, but it can be kind of difficult to sort of talk about things, especially like on like my day-to-day basis where not a whole lot happens. Of course I have things that I may want to comment on as the intro may tell you, but sometimes it's just me putting just random ass thoughts out there on anything, just sort of just to keep my mind at bay, I guess. I'm going to be doing radio for the first time in a long time tomorrow morning. So it's definitely gonna be a struggle waking up for sure early in the morning, but I'm looking forward to it. I've talked about sort of why why I took a break from doing it. So, and kind of like what kind of the stresses that came about doing the program and just doing radio in general. But I'm sort of looking forward to getting back and doing at least tomorrow's show and maybe next week's show as well. We'll see how that goes, and it'll definitely be good to like not only just to put my voice back out onto like the airwaves, but just also just reconnecting with like the music, because I'm pretty sure I've like missed out on some new releases, and stuff like that. And I've mentioned before that, I try to branch out. I listen to a lot of different types of music, so I definitely want to try to catch up on new, like country, bluegrass, folk related albums and just releases in general, and that I still have a lot of music that I can sift through at the radio library. So that's what I got going on. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a nice little change, and I think having this kind of mini break from school is also is a nice little departure as well. Had like a pretty stressful week last week, just dealing with like exams and work and all that. So I think just having this little time off should definitely be like beneficial, and then going back into classes and just the regular agenda, for sure. What else has been going on? I mentioned last time just sort of my experiences listening to music in my car and sort of just like making I wouldn't really say complaints per se, but just sort of commenting on like that kind of experience. So I've decided, you know what, I'm gonna try to adopt kind of like a new approach to it, you know. I've noticed that I'm like when I'm driving that I get distracted by like sort of what's playing. You know, it's hard not to be because I do engage with the music pretty often. But if I usually what I do is that I connect my phone to the radio via Bluetooth, and then I shuffle like my entire playlist. But it's just kind of, you know, when you do that, you're trying to seek out a particular song. You know, you're like, I don't really like that one. So you skip through like 20 songs before you finally reach a song that you want to listen to. And then after you're done with that song, then you skip another 20 songs. And I just realized that it's not really good because I do get distracted for sure, and I don't want to turn this into like a driving PSA by any means, but I do definitely get distracted, and I try to catch myself. I'm like, all right, I should just try to stick to, I don't know, just try to create like a playlist or something for like a specific mood or specific like kind of, you know, just how I'm feeling at the moment kind of playlist for each. You know, if I'm like going to class, maybe there's like a playlist I want to play. If I'm leaving to go home, then I have another playlist. I don't know. Just maybe I could just like try to be more organized in that way, because I realize that it causes like unnecessary stress for me while driving. I'm like, I don't want to listen to this song. I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it at the moment. So I then skip it to another song, and then, you know, and then just the process continues. So I think having sort of like a playlist of some sort could definitely just like help a little bit. I know it sounds incredibly like minute or minor to some people, but to me I really have to be in like being in the car. There's sort of like I need to have some kind of like accommodation, you know. Sometimes I don't mind. Well, actually, yeah, like I mentioned before, I don't mind driving without music, you know, but if I am listening to music, I have to like sort of sort through what types of music I like to listen to. And when you shuffle your entire library, you listen to the same songs over and over again, and you don't really get the same, I don't know, you don't really get the same emotion out of you, which is not anything wrong with that, right? You're not going to get the initial emotion you got when you were listening to the song for the first time, right? But I think to fit like a specific mood or specific theme of your day, I think I just need to like figure out like a playlist or some kind of like organization, you know, so I don't have to constantly be looking at my phone and then getting distracted, or maybe then end up in an accident or some shit. You know, you never know, right? You never know. I just don't really want that happening. I'm kind of paranoid about those kinds of things. So that's something that I've been keeping on my mind. I started. I think one way to sort of curve that habit of, you know, getting distracted by your phone's music library is just sort of putting it on just sort of like an autopilot, right? Just, you know, like I did, you know, shuffling your music isn't really the best way, but putting it on like a type of music that lets you be like, okay, this is fine for the moment. You know, and it's just sort of like a neutral kind of music that you can listen to while driving and whatnot. And I've noticed that jazz is like the best kind of music, just to keep it as like background noise. And it's an interesting experience, you know. Just driving around listening to it makes you feel like it makes you kind of feel like you're like in a movie, you know, like, and that jazz music is like kind of like a soundtrack, you know. I know this sounds incredibly cheesy, but that's just how I feel when I'm listening to like jazz music in my car. So yeah, if you want to feel like you're kind of like in like a noir. I don't know. If you want to feel like you're in some kind of movie, just play like jazz music in the background, right? And you're just driving around, and you're just interacting with the environment. There's like the way I imagine it is like, there's like, Miles Davis is playing, and I'm just kind of driving around. There's sort of like a camera behind me that's sort of tracking my, it's just, showcasing how I'm dealing with driving and stuff like that. Maybe I interact with other drivers, I get mad at them. It'll be like a kind of like an interesting, like a little short film. I probably sound incredibly narcissistic, but I'm just saying, like, it would just be like kind of like an interesting sort of way to go about things, I think. So jazz music as like accommodating me while I go about doing my day-to-day things is like, I don't know, it's kind of been like a nice change of pace for sure. I'll probably change it up once I get sick of it, but what I'm kind of doing right now is that I'm going through like classic jazz albums, playing them like on shuffle. So I've been listening to John Coltrane, Freddie Hubbard, Ahmad Jamal. So those are a few of the artists that I've listened to so far, and I'm probably gonna try to expand on that. Try to listen to some more jazz music. I've never really engaged with jazz music all that much, mainly because it doesn't seem that. It seems kind of, I don't want, I don't know how to really describe jazz music, right? It's not like there's kind of like a theme to every genre. There's like a, there's a mood, or there's like a atmosphere associated with every type of genre. But with jazz, it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly how you feel about it. It's not like I mentioned before. I had to like describe a scene in order to describe the feeling I had with like jazz music. Of course, you can definitely have like, like sort of the, predominant. I don't know. I'm kind of going off on a limb here, but the predominant emotions evoked by music, is like happiness, sadness, anger, stuff like that. That's not really. Of course, you can definitely experience it with jazz, but it's just more like subdued. There's just less. It's less prevalent. If it's like a love song, if it's like a pop song about love, or just sex or whatever, it's pretty obvious for the most part. You're like, oh, okay, this is just sort of the theme that's set. It's pretty straightforward. But with jazz, if there's no vocal accompaniment, like you can't really like pinpoint down exactly what the song's about. You sort of have to like. I am by no means any connoisseur of jazz music, because I've only recently started to become more engaged with it. But you can kind of, I think the way you base jazz music, or how you base the sort of what the artist's intent with the specific piece of music they made, I think is, the title, and then sort of you're like, okay, so the title of the song is just, I don't know, like it's called, okay, Freddie Hubbard's Red Clay, right? And then you listen to a 13-minute jazz piece, which I did recently, and then you kind of try to, figure out why the song is called Red Clay. And I still don't really know. I'm sure there's some context provided that I could probably just look up and get an understanding of it. So yeah, I think you just have to try to put yourself. Sorry for the P right there. I hate when I do that. I hate when people do that. But I think you just sort of have to put yourself in the the mind of the artist, or the composer and whatnot, and sort of figure out why they titled the song that, and why why it was composed in a specific way. Why is it 13 minutes long, right? Just sort of have to kind of piece things together. It's kind of like a it's kind of like a puzzle, I think maybe I'm going way too in depth with this, but maybe there's some jazz enthusiasts out there that can sort of correct my my own interpretation of their favorite musical genre. But that's just sort of how I'm sort of getting an understanding of jazz, and I think that as as I continue to listen to more music or more of that type of music, then I can get a better, understanding and more of a appreciation for the artists and just for the genre in general. That's just sort of what my experience has been with jazz music. And I think when I was initially, this is a bit of another tangent, but when I was initially doing radio my freshman year, I don't really know. I was still sort of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Initially, I did want to do a talk show, but I already talked about that and how it didn't really go about the way I wanted to. So I started to kind of explore what other music I wanted to do, and I did sub for. I think I subbed a couple times for a jazz show. It was either one or two times, and I think just sort of listening and just playing all these types of jazz music can was sort of, I think that sort of gave me more of like a motivation to seek out that kind of music. And yeah, it definitely helped for sure, just sort of getting more accustomed to different types of music for sure. I think this is just sort of like a general statement, just getting used to different types of music through different venues and stuff like that. I think I was so logged into just listening to straight hip hop for I don't know how long, ever since I was like in middle school, that I just wasn't really willing to go down different paths until later. So I'm kind of like at the moment I'm sort of like trying out different things and stuff like that, as trying to expand my library, as I've mentioned before. Don't really know where that thought was going, but that's just sort of the general feeling that I was sort of going for at the moment. I don't know what exactly that means, but that's just what's on my mind at the moment. I'm trying. Another thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to kind of get back into reading, hopefully. And I know it's gonna be hard. I know that my future self is gonna be like, You're just not gonna read, Myro. You're just not. You just don't really have the time." But I can argue back that I actually, I do have time. I have a little time left. The time that I spent, watching YouTube, which is perfectly fine, but it could be spent doing, reading and shit like that. And that was another goal that I had before school started this earlier in this fall, which I predicted that I wasn't really going to fulfill, and yeah, I predicted correctly, because I just have not read. I really haven't read at all since school started, just because I've just had other obligations to deal with and stuff like that. But I'm gonna try to get back into it. I'm gonna try sort of delving back into like sci-fi, like I did during the summer, and seeing where it goes. I'm gonna try to pick up this book called Standing on Zanzibar. I heard it's like a sci-fi classic or something like that. I don't know a whole lot about it, but the concept seems pretty interesting. The theme of the book deals with overpopulation, and that's kind of a topic that has always interested me, even at like a young age. Because how do that's just something that is such a abstract and such a global issue that can't even really be. You can't. How do you solve things like that, right? You can't. It's hard to like control the population. It's nearly impossible. I feel, just based on history and stuff like that. But I think, yeah, I'm just like interested in seeing like what kind of ideas the book presents, and sort of what possible solutions, or even if it's not even really a solution, just sort of like criticism it has on ways that people deal with such like monumental issues and stuff like that. And I think I've probably noted this before, but that's sort of why I'm like engaged with sci-fi in the first place, because I think out of all the types of genres out there, I think sci-fi brings up the most the most issues that like that are kind of prevalent on like a sort of like a how do I even like sort of like a societal basis, you know? Like they bring up a lot of different types of issues that you may want to consider, even if you don't like, even if like the author is clearly biased towards a particular issue. It's still like intriguing to hear what kind of issue that may be. I don't I haven't really read enough books to really comment on other genres as well, but I think just in terms of like fiction, sci-fi really brings up a lot of just a lot of interesting ideas and topics, and I don't want to like bag on fantasy or anything like that, but I think one of the I just sort of like I don't know how I'm gonna phrase this, but it's sort of like it's kind of difficult to really to truly engage, like to have like a dialogue about like fantasy novels. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who can provide a rebuttal to whatever I'm saying, but it's sort of when I like at least as of recently, out of the kind of somewhat the few fantasy novels that I read, I've sort of noticed like it's kind of hard to like pinpoint down a specific theme that the author is trying to bring up. Of course, there is definitely themes of like human struggle, survival, and stuff like that. There's sort of the typical ideas that the just novels in general bring up. But I think if you're looking to like dissect a deep theme connected to our daily going abouts, then I think fantasy is it's sort of difficult to really get nitty gritty with the text, because for the most part, I think what fantasy books provide is just sort of entertainment, but written very well. And this is such a this is such a very sort of this sounds like probably such a naive statement to people out there, but I think maybe I just need to read other types of fantasy novels, and see what kind of what kind of ideas they bring up. But just based on like what I really think it's just my very narrow sense of perspective on fantasy novels and just books in general. But I haven't really found like a fantasy novel that really brings up deep kind of philosophical questions about just just life and shit like that. So maybe that's something that I might seek out in the future, and maybe I can correct whatever stupid statement I make right now, and then maybe I can get some insight just from picking up another book and whatnot. Anyways, that's probably gonna do for my rambling today. Happy Thanksgiving once again. Hope everyone out there stays safe. And yeah, that's probably going to do it for me today. Save the Semantics, signing off.